Hey, I have been watching you from behind. How did you create entire report under 5 minutes?
Simple, because I've been using the latest AI features of Microsoft Excel, Microsoft Word and Microsoft PowerPoint, I'm able to do all of this work just under 5 minutes.
Can you please teach me the same?
Absolutely I can.
In today's video, we are about to see how to build a dashboard in under 10 minutes. Again, I hope you guys know what is pivot table is all about, so I'm not gonna explain what is a pivot table in here. So let's build a dashboard at a much faster rate. So to build a dashboard, I'm going to keep 5 different logics, and I'm going to keep the data or the chart methodology into same. If you want to build a chart methodology and showcase all your data set nicely, you can do that. And I'm going to place them also in a different way altogether. So I'm trying to find out the total sales for the following agenda. I want to go by yearly sales, and then I want to do that by the regional sales, and then I want to do by the rep sales, and I would like to do that by the customers and the product here. So I'm going to make one more dimension, yearly / month sales here. My data is going to become very big. Let's see how we are going to use this data set a little better here. When I build a dashboard here, I'm going to use the first dashboard alone. The rest of the dashboard I'm going to just replace them all, and then later on for interaction I'll take a little more time than normal. Other than that, my dashboard is not going to take probably 10 long minutes here. I can achieve that probably under 5 minutes, but again, for a safety purposes, I'm making this as a 10-minute point. I'll go to the invoice number, and then I'll go to the insert, and then when I click the pivot table, you get a different point. Again, if you're using a different version, the pivot table will change. We're not going to worry much about it, because what are the other fields that is coming up here? We're interested only in giving the table here. I created this data set as a table data, so I'm going to give you this. Then I'm going to take the date, and I'm going to take the sales here. When I do the dates and sales here, automatically my data set comes beautifully in this data, because this is the place where, because I'm using a latest version in Office 365, it's called 2309. After a long time, I'm seeing all my data sets breakup are coming up here. You can see that when I drill down this data set, it goes until the last date of transaction that happens in my data here. I'm not interested really to go too deep into it, because I'm interested only in keeping few data sets here. You can either do that in two different ways. The easiest way of doing it is by giving a right click here and then go to the group option, and then you can uncheck what you don't want. So I'm interested only in the year and the month, and that's going to showcase all my year and the month here. Probably if I show this as a data set, it will become different for me. Then I'll go back to my design, report layout, and show in tabular form, and that's going to break me the data set into multiple columns. If you are not looking for a breakup here, because my agenda or my chart will be a little different, yes, I'm going to get a Alt F1 here. That's going to give me the chart, and I wish to change the chart type to a line diagram here. And when I give an OK, that's going to showcase my line diagram data set beautifully. Here the advantage that I have is I have two variant here, so I can just go back and forth here. So I want to see it, because I just only kept 2 dimensions of data. This is the way it looks like a good data set. Then I can clean the data set a better. So I'm going to just drag and drop this sheet to the right, convert this into yearly sales here. I'm not going to give the yearly / month or year / month sales. Then I'm going to name them called year and month sales. Normally, if you are using a Power Pivot window, I will not do this. If I'm not using a Power Pivot window, then I'll click the total on top, go to the formula bar, give an equals, and select the cells here, and then give an enter. That way, it's going to pick up the data. Then I'll remove all the unwanted fields that I have. I don't want this total, nor the background line, so that the chart will become even more readable. Then I'll remove all these buttons, because these buttons sometimes hinders me a little. But if I keep the buttons there, then I can go back and forth here. So for going back and forth, I can do that with a slicer, but I'm going to keep the data in a detailed pattern possible, so I don't need this anymore. So I'm going to hide all the items here. This is one of my chart that I have here. So now I got my first chart with a proper data set where I say year and month sales here. So each and every year. Again, it's not showing me all the months. If I expand the chart a little bigger, probably I might get more months coming up here. Probably if I wish to see that in a quarter, that would be nice. So instead of showing this in a month, I go back to the data set and then I'm going to show that in the quarter here. By that way, the data set will also be seen nicely, and then when I reduce it, the data set is not going to really go for a toss. Let me just keep the chart a little bigger, because this is a chart that I'm going to use it and keep it as big as possible now. And if you want to reduce it and I'm interested only in seeing the graph, not the labels below, then I can just take it off, or I can just come back to this point and then go to the design mode and then make that as compact again. So the display itself will change, but nothing will change in my chart as such, because the chart is going to still showcase the data set as it is. I'm interested in seeing the charts variance here. Other than that, I don't need anything than that. Now probably I would have come across around 2 to 4 minutes of time. Now I'm going to build all the other agendas at a much faster rate. Just go to the right click, more copy to the data, and then just duplicate this data alone, create a copy of this at the bottom and give an OK. That's going to replace the data set completely. Then I'm going to just rename that as regional sales here. So I'll just remove the name, renaming it here. Again, I'm doing it in 2 places because I want to understand this betterly. So I'm going to go back to the top and then make that as a regional sales here. And then place the cursor in my data set, and then I'll give a right click, go to show field list, and change the data set from the year, quarter to a region here. If you want to change the data set to look better, then I can go back to my data set and change the datagram to a diagram here. Now I got the list. I never add the data label here, but this place, if I add the data label, that will be nice. I'm going to give a right click here, go back to my value field settings, number format, and then add an accounting symbol to it. And once I do that, then I do one more dimension here. I'm going to add this as a data bar. So I'll come back to this point, I'll add a data label here, and then I'll give a right click and then make the data set looks a little more smaller here by giving a right click on the axis tab, and then I will convert this into millions. Then if I don't want to read this data set in this way, I can remove it. Now I got the second chart, but the coloring of the charts remains same. So I'm going to click this and change the coloring to some other color. And I got the second table that's running here. If you want to make the renaming of the data sets here, then you can just go to report layout, because I'm also going to come in 2 different columns. It is coming only in 1 column of data here. The next agenda that I'm going to keep in right now is rep. So I'm going to give a right click, move to the last, create it, come back to the pivot table, remove the region, add the rep here, and change the colors here. I didn't do anything other than that, just making the data set look a little spick and span. Rename the sheet and rename the headers. Then repeat the same process for the next 2 data set. The coming data set is going to be a little more interesting, because this is going to become a little bigger, and it's also a very important aspect of a dashboard or a company here. And then change the color of the data set to another list here. And finally, I'm going to make the last and the final report, which is going to take the list here. Then I call this as product sales here. And then change the field from customer to product, and then change the colors here. So now I got my data set almost here. Again, I'm explaining this, so it's taking some more time for me to answer them all. Now I'm going to add a new sheet and then rename this as dashboard. And then I can start creating these dimensions better. Before I go too deep into the next list, let me just jump back to the data set. This is one of our workshop that we are planning to do right now. In our workshop, we are going to do the MS Office hacks here with ChatGPT and other AI tools. It's a 3-hour workshop, and it's running on 22nd of October. The cost at which you're going to pay, it will be an unbelievable cost that you're paying for this, and you can really make a good use of this opportunity to learn more about it. If you want to know more about it for registrations and other purposes, please click the description link below. That will allow you to make this data set work properly for you. Let's jump back to the dashboard again. So when I come back to the dashboard, I'll go back to the view tab, I'll remove the grid lines here, and then I'll come back to the insert tab and then make the text and then create a word art function. And I'll call this as sales dashboard. And then I'll make the data dashboard look a little smaller, then drag it to the top. So now I can add my or move my charts to the respective data sets. So I'm going to place the cursor in the yearly, give a right click, and then I'll move the charts to the sheets called dashboard here. So I got the first data dashboard here. So I can make this as small as possible as I want, because the data set needs a slight variant here. I don't want a bigger charts to be displayed here. I'm not either looking for the numbers here. Next point is I'm going to go back to the region, give a right click, move the chart, and then move it to the dashboard, and then try to match this, or you can keep it a little taller here, but again data is not going to really destroy much, so let me keep the data set a little taller. I'll try to make this also a little taller. I may not be able to see the entire dashboard here completely, so to make the dashboard work better, I'll go back to the view tab and then I'll zoom the data set to 75% here. By that way I can just showcase the data, then I can readjust the data set accordingly here. So let me move this data a little bigger and a little wider. By that way I can just only make the data set more visible to us, but also do something better here. Now I'm going to use the next option, give a right click here, move chart, and then move it to the last line, give an OK. I'm keeping that in the list here. Again, I could have done some changes to my charts here, but I think that I'm keeping certain component. Wherever we have a lot of data, I'm keeping that in one dimension. Wherever we have a little data, so my dashboards are coming at a much more cleaner manner here. I want to make the dashboard as big as possible, and then I'll come back to this list. I'll say move the chart to the last line here and give an OK. So now I got almost all my charts here. Let me just readdress this, because this will take a little time. When you are doing it for the first time, it's going to take even more time than what you were doing it. If you want to change this, because if this is a smaller data, then you can change the chart type to maybe diagram which talks about it, and then I choose the chart here, and then I'll go to the format label here, and then add a category label, and also I'm going to just make them in new lines here. By that way the data can seen better. If you want to just showcase this as a legends here, you can do that. I can just take the category out of the equation, and I can add a legend to the data sets here at the bottom. By that way I know exactly what are the colors that I'm using it. Again, in our data set here I missed our dimension, so I'm going to go back to our value fill settings here, and then one more dimension I missed in my dashboard here is the label here. So I'll go back to the format data label, and then I could have done something better in this list. What did I do is I didn't make the data set work properly for me. So now the data set comes nice and clean in the data. Let me leave it as it is, because when I move this is becoming a much more large data for me to read. Then I can add a slicer to it. By that way it will make our dashboard interactive here. So I'll go back to my pivot chart analysis, and then I'll add a slicer for all our data sets here. So I'm going to just say year, and then I'm going to call this as region, sales sub, customer, and product, and give an OK. And I'll get all these dimensions. I'm interested in keeping the year alone. I'll make it a little bigger, and I'll give a right click and go back to my slicer settings and hide the item which has no data in it, and then I'll make this into multi-columnar data. So this is actually coming as ATS, so That makes my life a little more easier. So I'll reduce this and I'll try to match the color exactly to the charts that I have here. And I'm taking the region next. Again, I'm going to make them into 2 columns, or if possible 3 columns. This 3 column looks nice here, and then I'll reduce that and then color them up with an orange. Then I take the rep here. I'm going to again make them into 2 columns, or how many data I have here. Yeah, I can take maybe 4 columns here and make it as small as possible. Wherever you want to adjust this data set a little bigger than normal, just make them so that way it will be useful for you to use it better. Then I'm going to use the third option, third coloring to our list here, green, and then I'll take the product here and then convert that into multi columns. Again, it's an 8 items for me, so I'm lucky here. I'm having a lot of 8 items coming up here, so let me just make them a 3 column because there are a few things which I cannot able to see clearly. So now I know the item's name completely, so I can readjust this a bit. And then color this also in the blue colors that I'm looking forward for, and then I'll reduce this to a 2 column and then make it to multiple columns here. So now I got all my lists coming up here. Still my data sets are a little bigger. I can readjust wherever I can. So by that way I can add one more data nicely. Let me adjust this data set so that I can see all my filters, because I'm not taking any chances in losing the filters here, because I'm adding the other filters also for my list here. Now I'm making this data set for a full straight line because I don't want to break them into multiple columns here, because I might not have enough space to do that. And then I'm adding the colors here. Now I got my entire dashboard in this list, so let me just make this headers to the center. Now I got almost all the data set coming in one single page. And the disadvantage that I will have at the moment is my data will not be dynamic, because, or it will be dynamic in only one chart, because when I use the charts, I use the chart only for the year and month sales here. I don't want that thing to happen. I want to make that data set to work a little better. To do that, I'm going to give a right click here. I'll go back to my report connection and check all the boxes in this list. As I duplicated the sheet, all my pivot table was single catchy here. Then I go back to my list and add this, another list, and then add this to another list, and then add this. So once I do this completely, then that makes my life a little more easier. Now I got all my pivot table and chart and everything in one screen. Now when I move this, or when I give this to anybody else, when they want to see a particular report, they want to know what is our sales done in Chennai by permutation combination. So I said in 2022 in Chennai by Alagu in 7+, what are the items he sold, or I can see that the customers we sold. So he missed the quarter 4 here. So in 2022 we don't have quarter 4 sales from Alagu here. And total sales that he did is 0.31 million here on across the data set, and then he sold it for 3 customers, 2020 Mobile, Sangeeta and Surya Mobiles here. When I clear these dimensions, automatically my other dimension will come into play. So this is an interactive dashboard built from a pivot table. This is the raw data that I got it, and then the time is this much. Again, when I explained it, so it taking a long time. If I am going to do it, we can build the dashboard in under 10 minutes time. The timeline is almost crossed now, 20 minutes now, because I'm explaining each and every concept for you. So this can be done in under 10 minutes time once you know what data that you have with me. This is Vinod signing out from B10X YouTube channel. Please like, share and subscribe our YouTube channels for more informative video to follow. Thank you so much. Have a good day ahead.